A quick introduction as to the topics that are going to be covered in today's session. There's going to be a brief overview of who Pristima is relative to the total preclinical solution. And then as we transition over to our speaker today, Tom Klapmutz, he's going to take us through a PPND study that's going to include some focus on the following topics: the pup status, pup measurements, culling, etc. This live demonstration portion should last approximately 30 minutes or so. And as I mentioned at the end of this session, there'll be an ability to ask questions using the GoToWebinar panel. We'll come back on after this and highlight a couple of the areas of the Pristima application that are relevant to the demonstration. And then we'll field questions. And then at the end, we'll wrap up and explain to you how you can get a copy of the materials, as well as how you can access the on-demand version of today's session. So as we move into it, to set the background for what you're going to see today, Pristima, of course, is a total preclinical solution. We're going to focus, obviously, on one specific area inside of Pristima today, but we want to make sure everybody understands that within this platform known as Pristima, there's actually two core components for research data management and animal management. Within this, there are actually several key areas of focus, including the docs and the image author and approve functionality, the central data repository, the archive, and of course the lab asset management. There are then processes wrapped around this core data management platform, and this is going to include things like the ability to plan, track, manage, and view your studies, the ability to manage the publish and send protocol process, and then this is offered actually as both a managed service as well as a platform as a service. So from start to finish, Pristima is really assisting companies engaged in preclinical studies with subject acquisition, managing the actual logistics and facilities, health and welfare functions, research study design, conducting of the research and the data collection, the analyze and the reporting, straight through to the submission. So again, we're going to be focusing on one specific area inside of this application, but it's important to note that this application covers a very broad area from start to finish, the entire preclinical process. So what I want to do is introduce Tom. Tom, if you want to do a quick sound check as I'm passing you control.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Probably want to get that volume up just a little bit, Tom.
Okay, how's that?
Much better, much better. So I'm going to go ahead and make you presenter and verify that the screen is showing. And it is. And we're going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Tom, if you want to do a quick introduction, explain who you are, your role, and then we can go ahead and get right into the demo.
Okay. My name is Tom Klapmutz. I'm a Client Solutions Manager at Zybion. I have 20 years of tox, repro, general tox experience. So my role is incorporating Pristima into your business and working with customers on getting your business workflows efficiently into Pristima. So what we'll do is we'll just touch base on some of the things I covered. This is the third webinar in the series, so we already covered the embryo-fetal developmental tox study, the fertility and early embryo developmental tox study, and this is the pre- and postnatal developmental tox study. So I'm just going to touch base back on study management and just go over, protocol setup. I'm not going to go into too much detail because we've covered that in both of the previous sessions. But through the protocol, you have your personnel section. Those are the people that are actually going to be working on the study. Your study type. So in this case, this is going to be a multi-generation study. It's study subtype, and these are all definable by the user. We're going to have 2 generations. We have our animal specifications, and again, we have the FO and then the F1s, so you can determine study numbering for both generations. Group specifications, again, for the FO and the F1s. We'll go through dosing specifications, phase selection. So for your phase zeros, we've got a pre-test phase and then a pre-mating phase. So all of this was covered in the fertility demo. And so we go through the mating phase, cohabitation, estrus monitoring, insemination, into the gestation phase. And then the gestation phase in this study design ends with parturition. And so in the EFD, at the end of gestation, we would go to C-section and do our skeletals and viscerals. In the fertility, we would do an early C-section, and we would just do externals. And so in this case, we're going to carry our fetuses into pups and then go through a postnatal phase and then we'll go on to a next generation, and you can define these phases as like, a growth phase. I just put in recovery because it was something I had predefined on my list of phases. But you can have a growth phase and then back into a mating phase, gestation phase, and postnatal phase for the F1 generation. Go on to schedule, and so here it's a pretty robust schedule for this type of study. I have it sorted by the different phase types just to show you. You can select any of these fields, and you can sort it by body weight, by measurement, by criteria, by subject subclass, by phase. So here we've got body weights in the gestation phase, the mating phase, post-lactation, postnatal, pre-mating, pre-test, and recovery. And again, just clicking here, it groups everything into the different phases of the study. So a lot of the stuff I'm going to cover today are these postnatal phase measurements. So we have our daily litter check, our F1 pup selection, individual pup weights, and I have both measurements in here just to show you some of the flexibility of Pristima. So we can do individual pup weights, or we can do litter individual pup weights. We have pup culling, pup death status check, pup identification, pup measurement assignments, pup sex monitoring. So these are all, definable measurements. So you can add whatever measurements you'd like to do for your developmental landmarks or your behavioral landmarks. And then we have our caging for both the FO and the F1 generation. That's pretty much just a quick review of the protocol setup scheduling. What we'll do is we'll log into the study. Now the study I have set up, again, with the PPND, you have to make sure which generation you want to enter into. So we have the FO generation. And now here it shows you the study and the generation. So you know which animals you'll be working with. There we go into our animal data. We select our date. And then it'll show the measurements. So I have a couple studies screens already set up because I've entered some data on this study so that when we get to the reporting, which will be the next webinar, we'll be able to cover all of the different reports for all 3 study types. And I've been putting in some significant amount of data so that when we do that webinar, we'll have a good representation of actual study data. And so in this case, this animal is in the gestation phase. I'm back entering the data for January. The study was actually started in January, so it's February 15th is our gestation day 22 for this animal. It has the group cage information, the measurement, which is parturition monitoring. And so with Pristima, we can enter, when we go in to check to see if the animal has started. If she hasn't, we can just click OK, and it'll record not started. If the animal has started delivering, we would then go ahead and select in progress. And if there's any pups at that time, we can enter them here. So there's 3 pups and 1 stillborn. And then we can click OK. Again, because I'm back entering, it's asking me for a time. And then we'll go back in for the next day. And we're back to that animal. And so we see delivery started on the 15th at 6 a.m. She was in progress. So now we can see it's either continuing in progress, and again, the system will keep track of the length of gestation, and also you can see if it's a prolonged delivery, or she's completed, at which point I can, put in a pregnancy status of pregnant. And again, you can define the options here. So you have delivered early, died delivering, died postpartum, incomplete delivery, prolonged delivery. So that's user definable, so you can have whatever pregnancy status is that you're currently using in your business. So we'll select pregnant. The system calculates the length of gestation. You can also override it. I know there's several different ways that this is calculated depending on the start. You know, some companies, if it starts delivering on one day and finishes in the next, then the previous day is the delivery date. So you have the ability to override it here. And then you can enter the remaining or additional pups that were born. If at that point you have any dead, you can click on Mark Dead, and it'll allow you to mark them dead. So here you can see this one was stillborn when I first entered it. I can just, you know, perform this check, and then we can go ahead and complete the delivery. It's 8 a.m. on the 16th. So here, this is the system, you know, showing you that the phase is changing. So for this dam, her gestation phase is changing to her postnatal phase, and the postnatal phase start date will be 2/16. So as the animals change through phases, you can also pick the cage assignment at this point. I had already predefined which cages they'll be going into after delivery. If you wanted to change that, you could here. So we click OK, and the animal is now moved from the gestation phase into the postnatal phase. So if we go back, and again, in real time, you would just, you know, be in these data collection sessions. So now we're on the same day, but we have other measurements because now we're in the postnatal phase. Remember, we were in the gestation phase before, and now parturition or is no longer available because it's all complete. All the animals have delivered at this point. If there were any animals still in the gestation phase between 19 and 24, that's how I defined it, you would see that measurement here. But now everybody's made it, so we'll go to postnatal phase, and we have a bunch of measurements available here. So we can do a daily litter check, we can do individual pup weights, or we could do litter pup weights, we do pup death status, and pup sex. Again, once you move them over to the selected measurements, you can change the order just by dragging them up as to how they're displayed on the screen. You can also click details and see which animals are scheduled for which measurements. And then you can also go in here and select specific animals that you want to do. In this case, I just want to look at group 2, which 2504 is the animal that I just entered for delivery. We'll just focus on that group. We click OK. It's going to ask if you have anything that requires weight. It's going to ask for balance, and then your balance checks. And so now we're in to the data collection screen. So the system knows which animals are in which phase of the study and which measurements are required. So here you see daily litter check is grayed out because that measurement's not required. We have individual pup weights, and again, I've already collected this data. We have sex monitoring, so there's no entry, so I can click here, and it brings up what the previous sex was. So if it's the same, I would just click performed. If I wanted to change the sex, I would just select that and then change it. Again, because I had already previously entered data for this, it's asking me for an edit for this. And I'll have an audit trail for the sex change. Now you see complete with the asterisk mean I changed the data. And then your pup death status, you can click here and we see they're all alive. This pup died on 2/20, and it's an approximate time of death, and it was postnatal day 4. We can click OK. Perform. And then we'll go to the next animal, which is 2504. So this is the animal that just delivered. So now you see it's day 0 of the postnatal phase. So we have daily litter checks. We have individual pup weights. And so you'll be able to move across the pups this way. We have pup sex monitoring. individual litter pup weights. So here you can enter your pup weights this way. So we have two different ways of entering your pup weights. So you can either enter them through this screen or through this screen. So they're just two different measurements. The advantage of using this measurement is you have the previous pup weights, whereas when you're using this one, you just have an empty field, so you don't really get to look at the previous weight. Just, a couple different ways of doing it. And then we have our pup death status check. So again, they're all alive. So we'll just walk through. Again, here, pup death status is built into the litter check. So you have death status and sex. And then I have them separate as two separate measurements. So really what you could schedule is your daily litter check with these two parameters, and then your individual pup weights, which would have your previous. These are just duplications of these first two measurements. So we'll do pup death status, and you can change the status here to cannibalized, missing, or alive. And we'll say there's one missing. And it goes ahead and enters the date, the phase, the day. And we'll say it's 7/26. Again, just because I'm in back entry, this would automatically take the time and date stamp. It's approximate time. If I had any comments I wanted to enter about this fetus, this pup, I can enter it here. And then we record, and now it's completed. We go to pup sex. So now pup 1 is gone because I marked it dead. So we're going to go ahead and sex the pups. I can either do the mouse. I could just enter with the letter F for female or M for male. U for undetermined. So you can either use keyboard or mouse for data entry. That completes it. Record as performed. Individual weights. So here, being connected to a balance, I would just hit the balance. But in this case, I'm not for demo purposes, so I'm just going to enter the weights. I don't have weight checking set up for this. I also have my measurement to 1 decimal place. That's where you see your rounding. So these are all different business rules that you can set for your actual work process. And then next, I'll go to the next measurement. Because it's a different measurement, it's still going to the same area of the database, so it sees that I've already entered this information. So I'm not going to go ahead and enter these measurements. I'm going to just use those two. Click OK. Can change to the next animal. Again, this animal already has the data collected. So we'll go on to the next day. Would be 217. And so as we go through, again, the system will bring up what's required. So we have our litter check and our individual pup weights. Again, I'm not going to bring these over because they're the same measurements as these. Just did it the first time to show you some options on how you can, set up your measurements. And that's one thing with Pristima, the flexibility to group measurements and parameters together. That's something that we would define with you. So here, pup death status isn't done, and pup sex not required. So we'll do our pup death status. And again, we just want to get to animal 2504. So our death status, these are all alive. We mark it performed. And we have 4 males and 4 females, and we're done. So we'll exit from there. So we're just focusing on 2504, and that's the one that we just delivered on the 15th. Then we'll go to the 19th. So now we have some additional measurements. We have our litter check, our pup weights, we have pup culling, pup identification, and pup measurement assignment. So we added some new measurements. Again, we'll go ahead and walk through the process of these. Again, we just want to, 2504, pup death status, everybody's alive. Nobody's changed as far as sex. We have 4 males and 4 females. Again, it's day 3, so these other measurements aren't required until day 4. So we'll just do this one more time to get to the other functionality. Again, it shows you all of the measurements I've selected, and the gray box means that those are not scheduled for these animals. The only thing that was scheduled for this dam and her pups was daily litter checks. So we'll do daily litter check. Individual pup weight, pup culling, pup identification. Okay, so now we have all of the measurements available, individual weights, pup culling, pup identification, and pup measurement assignment. So again, the system will know which pups and which dams are in which phase of and which day of the phase. So as you go through, it'll just have the required measurements for those animals, so you can just run through your study pretty quickly. So here we have our daily litter check. Again, we have all of our pups are alive. We're going to change this one. It's actually a male. Now I can tell I have 5 males and 3 females. Again, I have my allowed reentry time set, not configured to allow this sufficiently. So that's complete. Individual pup weights. Again, you see the previous weight and the date it was taken. Weights in here. So now we go on to pup culling. Here, the system, you set it up in the measurement as to culling and what you want to cull to. So in this case, I have it set the culling to 4 males and 4 females. We click the assignment. It tells you if you have insufficient number. So there are insufficient females to keep. All the females will be maintained. I wanted to keep 4 of each. We click OK, and it randomly gets rid of this one male. And again, it documents all the information real time. The date is the date that I'm in the system, but the time is actually, when you look at the raw data, it'll have today's date and time for me culling back on February 20th. It has the phase in the day, and you can add a comment here if you'd like. So now we've culled this study. Click OK. Again, the pup selection requirements are not met. It's telling you you're supposed to have 5 males and 4 males and 4 females, but you only have 4 males and 3 females. Are you okay with that? We'll click yes, and then we move on, and again, it marks it complete. So we'll move on to the next measurement, pup identification. So now it has the pups that we have. So we have 4 males and 3 females. We click assignment, and again, it picks the numbering schema which we defined in the protocol, and so it'll take the dam number and give each pup a new number. So now pup 2 becomes 2504-1. Click OK. So now those pups are permanently identified. And then we can go on to pup measurement assignment and what available measurements we have. So here, if you have male-specific measurements, The system knows that these first 4 are males. I don't have any measurements, so you can have your preputial separation or any other developmental landmarks that you would have, either defined by sex or both sexes. So if it was a measurement that's for both, it would be available for males and females. In this case, I have vaginal opening available, so you would highlight the pup you want to assign this measurement to, click on the measurement, and then bring it over to the pup. So now this pup has been assigned for vaginal opening. Same thing here. We do this for each pup, so you can assign specific measurements to specific pups, and then you also have all the available measurements that you've defined in your protocol. You click OK, and those measurements are assigned for those pups. Again, we can see that we've completed everything. Next would be here. So now we'll look at this litter that we did 2504, and we'll look at it on postnatal day 21 when we're doing our weaning. And so here we have our F1 pup selection. So we click OK. We'll get into this measurement. And with this measurement, we can assign animals to the next generation. And so here we would click Assign. And what I have it is I have it taking 2 males and 2 females onto the next generation. And so you see it calls the remaining 1, 2 females and males. Again, this is not the litter we were working on. It's another litter, but it's required to have this done. So this was for 1502. So now we've gone ahead and assigned these animals to our F1 measurements. So now when we log out, we can log back into the F1, and these animals are moved over. We'll go to the litter we were working with, 2504. And so you see you have 4 males and 3 females. They're all alive. You can go ahead and assign them. And so now we have 2 males and 2 females moving on to the F1 generation. Click OK. And again, move on to another litter. And again, day 21. We can just click Assign. The system randomly assigns them. And so now we're going ahead and creating our F1s. I'll finish that for now. So now we'd have to log into the study. And it's the F1 generation. When we come with this study toolbox, we have the phases. And then we see the animals. Again, I called it a recovery phase. And those animals are available in this study. And then we can go into our postnatal screen, our data entry screen. And now that we're in the F1 generation, we can look at measurements that are scheduled for these animals. Let's see, when do I have this? 3/7. Maybe I didn't schedule animals. Just to add it, to do it. Every day I was off by a day. There we go. Just off. So their recovery phase doesn't start till 3/8. And then it'll have the previous, which would be the last postnatal phase body weight. And then you can see here the system calculates the age based on the date of birth. And then we would have the new growth phase or recovery phase, whatever phase you would want to call it. Now we have our range checking set up, so it's expecting between 19.2 and 23.4. We'll accept it, click OK. Again, same birthday because these were in the same litter. 2001. And then you would carry this generation through whatever measurements that you're required to do. So if you're doing additional growth or behavioral measurements, they would be scheduled in the F1 study. And then if you're going to go ahead and do your second generation mating, you would schedule your estrus, your mating phase, your estrus cycles, your cohabitation, gestation, and all those measurements, and you would just function through the F1 part of the study. So everything's in one protocol. You have the different phases through the same protocol, so it's not a different study number. The only difference is the generation here for managing your data, so you don't have multiple protocols. So that pretty much covers the functionality and a quick overview of multi-generation studies, going through your parturition, assignments to measurements, how the system manages those, your culling, automated culling, and then also your selection into your next generation. There are a lot of other features, and we can go ahead and schedule, individual demos and PPND, a full PPND study with all the data collection. But again, this was just an overview to give you some idea of the capabilities Pristima has for managing multiple generation studies. And that's pretty much
Thank you,
it.
Tom.
Yep.
Appreciate that. Let me go ahead and pull this back. Okay, so that wraps up the demonstration portion of this. So let's go ahead and just walk through a couple of other quick items here. Real quick, Tom, I want to make sure that the screen is showing up properly.
Yep, we're good.
Great. So as I mentioned, we'll send out the on-demand version of this to everybody so you can have a copy, and if you want to share this with your peers who couldn't potentially make today's session, you're welcome to do so. It'll certainly highlight within the slide that will accompany that some of the other items of interest on the total preclinical solution, including the different modules and the additional options for each of those modules. As we mentioned in the beginning, while we focused on one very narrow area within the Pristima platform, there are certainly other key functional components to it, including the base system, the toxicology module, the clinical path module, pharmacy, colony management, etc. Clients that have deployed the total preclinical solution have taken this approach and reported back to us a great deal of benefits on the usability, the simplification of their IT landscape, the way that they've been able to consolidate many different preclinical data systems and leverage one for knowledge management as well as even potentially externalization to partners and regulators. This has been a huge cost savings for our clients, and as we kind of push out some of the case studies and some of the press on the new clients, they all report back that one of the key decision criteria that came into play when they selected Pristima and the benefits they've derived after having used it for a period of time, hands down, was that total solution being able to eliminate some of the legacy applications that were relatively expensive to maintain, and worse yet, we're probably not really communicating with other systems in a fashion that facilitated analytics. So most of those IBM customers, of course, have a broad landscape of these legacy preclinical systems which they've bought, built, or acquired over the years. And today's world, with business and regulatory needs requiring much better access to data in a much quicker fashion, certainly Pristima lends itself very well to this. And the total preclinical solution does provide that end-to-end approach, uses the new technologies with tested integration in this information framework. The central data repository, of course, is a key factor, as well as the standardized archive platform. And it basically allows you to retire these costly legacy systems and hopefully realize those benefits of the lower TCO for your systems and applications supporting preclinical in a much shorter time, which ultimately, we hope gets new drugs and devices to market much quicker. So again, we want to thank you for attending today and viewing this kind of live demonstration workshop. You're welcome to visit us online and learn more about our solutions, and I'll direct you to where that can be found on the web in just a moment. You can also schedule a full demonstration with Tom to take you through the entire platform. There will be some additional sessions coming up, as Tom mentioned, and everybody that attended today will, of course, get invitations to those sessions. And I'll point you out real quick to, on the Zybion homepage, you are able to go into the preclinical solutions. Within the preclinical solutions page, there will be a collaterals button where you're able to then go in and access the different brochures, documents, case studies, etc. There's also a webinars icon here where you're able to go in and access some of the different on-demand versions of these webinars as well. So again, a quicker way to even get to that would be as you first come in, you hit the webinar button. The on-demand versions of these sessions are made available. Right here, you click on that, and it'll ask you to fill out your name and your email, and then it will play the on-demand version of each one of these webinars in this series for you. So again, I don't have any immediate questions on the floor, so we're going to go ahead and wrap the session up. We're coming in right at the 40-minute hour, so I want to again thank Tom for taking us through the live demo. And thank everybody who's joined us this morning. And certainly if you have questions, we encourage you to reach out to us to schedule some time to learn more about this great solution. The session is now complete. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tom.
Okay, thanks.